We're live. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another career strategy session. We have one of our favorites. She's back on the career strategy session because her advice is so great that we keep having a demand for it, and we were just joking that she is now a resident career strategy partner. So everyone, welcome DeLisha to our career strategy session. Tonight we're talking about her book, If I Knew Then. So she's going to tell us her inspiration for the book, some tips for entrepreneurs, and of course we're taking your questions live. So use the Q&A feature on the left-hand side of the screen so that we can make sure that we answer all of your questions tonight. So Dee, why don't you jump in and tell us what inspires you to start writing the book?
I was inspired to start writing the book when, I'd gone through a lot of things probably within the first to the second year of business. And I just kind of said, you know what, I should write about it. I should chronologically kind of put this down, kind of like a journal. It was very sporadic. I didn't have any sort of concept of how I wanted to write. I wrote over the course of many, many months and took a long time to even put it out. I joke and say it was pretty much done probably 6 to 7 months ago in terms of writing, but the editing process got to me. And I was just really inspired to talk about my journey and mistakes and kind of help those who might make the same ones and see how I did it and how I came out of it.
So that's great. And for anyone who doesn't have a copy of the book, head over to Amazon and get your copy, If I Only Knew Then. So Dee, one of the things that I think a lot of people may not know about you is the fact that you started a business so young, under the age of 25. So tell us about your first business and how you talk about that in the book.
Well, my first business, which is bookkeeping, I started DS Bookkeeping and Consulting in April of 2012. And I was working at a chamber of commerce and I was like, why not, I do this 9 to 5 every day for them. Why not do this for myself on the side and get some clients in and maybe see how this can go? And so I started it in April and just really put ads out on Craigslist and, had a client, contact me and say, hey, we'd love to use you, but I was too far and I didn't drive at the time. So I was a late bloomer in the driving department. So I didn't drive at the time, so I couldn't take them. So I decided to do a virtual business, and that's kind of how that transformed. And so I started that in 2012. I'll be 28 this year, so do the math. I was, of course, under 25, and it was a good starting point to kind of get my feet wet in business. And then, of course, venture out into my second business, which is the magazine.
So take us to that moment where now, as a 28-year-old, looking back at your younger self as an entrepreneur, what do you wish that you would have known then?
I mean, there's so many things I wish I have thought about.
One thing.
The one thing that I wish I knew then was to just, plan it a little bit better. I'm not the best when it comes to planning things. I'm very sporadic. I go with my emotions. I call myself a creative. We could wake up in the middle of the night and think of an idea and want to run for it. Sometimes I wish I had sat down and just kind of wrote things out, and maybe that would have caused me not to have so many mistakes along the way. So that's one thing that I would say I wish that I'd done differently, but then again, at the same time, I wouldn't have had the lessons. So there's a blessing in every lesson at the end of the day.
Right. And I agree with that completely. So let's stay on that track for a second. If you knew then, you would have written some things down. So give us an example of something that you wish you would have planned out so that it would have been smoother.
Well, at least with the magazine, definitely in the beginning, trying to figure out how to, the question I get a lot is, how do you go from, first I started out as a blog to doing a magazine. I wish that I had figured out a little bit earlier on that the things that I needed in place in order to have the quality that I have today. So I wish I had done a little bit more research in terms of, okay, Can I do website design, which is one thing that I talk about a lot? Okay, who do I need to do different graphics or different marketing? How can I reach advertisers? Okay, what kind of advertisers in my market? You know, different things like that. In terms of that, I really wish that I had sat down and figured that out, as opposed to kind of stumbling along the way and finding and interacting with people to get me to the steps where I am now. So those are the certain things that I wish I had written down and really just focused on that I didn't necessarily in the beginning.
Okay, so those are two really great lessons to learn very early on. We have quite a number of visitors joining us tonight, so I want to encourage you all to ask questions using the Q&A feature here on Google Hangout, or you can tweet your questions and I'll make sure I ask Dee your questions. So Dee, you're talking about your second business. Tell us about your transition from owning one business to owning two businesses.
Well, I have to go back to that statement I made earlier, being a creative and literally waking up out of a dream. And I tell everybody the story. I woke up and I had a vision and I just said, I want to do a magazine. And I just started from there. I had a name and an idea, and I said, this is what I want to do. A lot of people know I studied English, and I wanted to use that degree. I wanted to use it to do something that would inspire others. And so that's really where that came from. And just life changes. And after having my daughter and all that, I kind of just wanted to leave some positivity on this earth. And so that's where We Magazine kind of came in. It allowed me to do things that were more creative as opposed to just being a number cruncher and doing bookkeeping. So that's kind of where I meshed both worlds together within the two businesses.
So I know you shared with us some of the planning for the magazine and the quality and the online features. You talk about in the book, and I'm going to just pull out my book, y'all, so I can reference this to ask her the question, the reflection in the mirror, the person in the mirror, the most important person to be aware of, because this person will be the one who looks to undermine your every move. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because that really stuck with me.
Well, you know, the thing about that, in that chapter, it was called Beware Of. And you have to be aware of yourself, because you are going to be your worst critic. You are going to be the person that critiques you. You're going to be the person that says you can't do it. You're going to be the person that says it's not going to work. You're going to be the person that says, well, I'm not making enough money yet, so maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should go back to my 9 to 5 and give it up. Maybe I should just make this the side hustle for the rest of the life. So you really have to control that, because it's going to be your inner demons that stop you from doing something great with your life and what God has blessed you with, and using your talents. So that's really where I was coming from in terms of that. A lot of the times I, get no's left and right in terms of, wanting to interview people or wanting to get a new client for bookkeeping. And that can be draining and tiring, especially when you're starting out. And even, once you've been in the business a while. So you really have to have a self-confidence about yourself and know that just because you have a no on one occasion doesn't mean that you'll continue to have no's later on.
Right. And that takes me to another question I have. As a business owner and the founder of a magazine, you had some really big names on the cover of your magazine. Tell us how you went about getting those people to sit down with you for an interview.
Blessings. There's a lot of blessings there. When I started out interviewing people that I knew in my community that had businesses. It started out based on entrepreneurs and really talking to them. But then I wanted to expand, because, people in the music business, they're entrepreneurs. They're promoting their music. People who are actresses, they're promoting their movie. They're still entrepreneurs. That's their business. So I wanted to expand that. And basically I go through, my social media. I go through people, I might see someone on TV and I say, okay, that might be a good person to feature. I do the research. I figure out what they've done for their community. I figure out what positive things that they're doing. And then I reach out. I find their PR person and I, kind of stalk them, so to speak. Sometimes it's a little bit easier. I think the more names you have, it gets a little bit easier when they can see that, okay, you've had good names or great names like Kim Whitley or, Allison Blaine Featherson or, a lot of different people. So it helps to have those names, but at the same time, it was a long process. It did not happen overnight.
So that brings me to another part of the book that I resonated with. It says, when in doubt, hide out. Can you explain that concept to us?
Well, my parents, who are probably watching this now, know this. When I started this business, I waited until, I want to say, November, December, maybe, to tell them that I had even had a magazine, because I'm a perfectionist, and I think I get that from my dad. I want everything to kind of be as perfect as it can be before I show it to my family, because I want them to be proud of me. So I really just hit out, and I do that with a lot of projects. I might talk about something and say, hey, I'm going to do this, but then I'll get really quiet when it comes time to actually putting in the work, because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to struggle through it and find out what direction I want to take it. And I think that that's a good thing to have, because the thing about it is, when you share too much with people, everybody is not on your team, for one. So you have to realize that early on. Not everybody is going to be happy for your blessing, because they might feel like you're taking away from their pool. So you have to learn to keep things close and figure things out for yourself first before you put it out to the world. Because you could put it out to the world before you're even ready, and then it blow up in your face, and then you'll be, embarrassed. So try to figure it out within, your closed home, and do it that way, rather than just telling everybody your business. So that's really what that chapter is about.
Yes, and I think I resonated with that for many reasons. As a new entrepreneur, I waited to the very last minute. For most people, they're just finding out today what's been in the works for a really long time. Right. So we have a question here from Markia Jones, and Markia's question is, you mentioned you started with bookkeeping and transitioned to working your magazine. What advice would you give someone who has two passions that are completely unrelated? What advice would you advise nurturing one over the other, or continuing to work both? Great question, Markia.
I would say that you can do both at the same time. You just have to learn how to split your time wisely. You have to learn how to separate your day. So on one part of the day, I might be in bookkeeping mode. And then in the second part, usually the nighttime, I'm in, magazine mode. Most people know that I'm up till 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning working on that. So you just have to learn how to separate your day out or your week out. And it's I won't say that it's easy, but you just have to learn how to dedicate the time. And eventually you'll figure out which one of the ones, if one is more passionate for you than the other, you'll figure out which one it is. If I had to be honest, of course, most people know that my magazine is probably more passionate for me. So they see me constantly posting, constantly doing things regarding that. So you can find time to do it. It's just figuring out what your schedule is and figuring out what matters to you most.
That's great, Markia. I hope that answers your question. So, Dee, let's jump back into the book. There is chapter 7, Image versus Perception, and I'm just going to read you all a quick portion of this. Over the course of the past year, I have heard a lot about changing my image to match my brand. Honestly, this is never something I thought about. Even though I love my business, I didn't want it to propel myself onto the forefront. And I know you like being behind the scenes, but one of the things that I admire and I first connected with you about when I started following you online is the Naturally Me campaign, where you encourage people to post the pictures of themselves. So in business, image is important. Tell us about that image versus perception.
Well, that chapter, that really resonated with me, because it was just something that I never thought about in terms of business. I'd never thought about who I am as a person and how that reflects on my business, because I am behind the scenes. So I'm not the person on the cover. I'm not the person, I wasn't even really thinking about being in the forefront or having to really speak outside of just doing interviews via the phone. So when that was kind of pushed in front of my face, it was kind of like, oh, so you mean to tell me it's time for makeup and heels and to put on, certain, airs about yourself in order for people to even listen to you? I'm like, what is that? So when I talk about image, I talk about it in a sense that you have to have a certain image so that you're nice to look at. I mean, let's just be honest. People like things that are nice to look at, and they won't look at things that aren't nice to look at. And that's true for your appearance. So if you dress yourself nicely and put your hair together, that doesn't mean you have to have straight hair or any of that. You can be as natural as they come. But it just means that you have to have a certain image to match your brand. And when you don't, it confuses people. And that kind of confused people when it came to my brand, because I'm very laid back, very chill, not the girl that's going to dress up and put on, heels or anything like that. But that can confuse people who are thinking, okay, a CEO should look like this. So that's the perception of what they're thinking in their mind that you should look like. And you have to think about that. It sucks, but you do.
Right, because we live in a world where first impressions matter and outward appearance matters. So if you're going to get the attention and be perceived as someone who's running a magazine or whatever your business is, you do have to dress the part. That reminds me of that saying, dress for the position that you want, not for the position that you have. So I just want to remind our viewers that you can ask Dee a question live. Just pop it in the Q&A section here on Google+, or you can send a tweet and I'll make sure I ask her question. Dee, jumping right back into the book, chapter 4, and we touched on this already, the power of doubt. So let's talk about the biggest lesson you learned from the power of doubt.
The biggest lesson that I learned about even doubting myself is that my doubts don't define me. They're just a piece of me. They're kind of like the devil's advocate. They're there to say, okay, well, yeah, you want to do this, but what if it goes this way? And that it's not that it's a bad thing. It allows you to think about different elements that can play into what you're trying to do. So I think that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, was that I can use the power of doubt to kind of curtail it and make it something that is not negative, but positive. It can make me think of situations a different way. It can make me think of it the way the consumer thinks about things, or the way the consumer might see things. So that's how I learned to use doubt in a more positive way.
I love that. You turn in something that may be negative into a positive and just going with that. So I highlighted and actually have a sticky on this one, chapter 8. Everyone has a message and everyone has a lane. Looking back, if you knew then, what would you tell yourself about that, about everyone having a lane?
First and foremost, and I said it in the book, girl, you are not a graphic designer. That is I am not in that lane. I am never going to be in that lane. That is not my lane. I am just not the person that necessarily does that the best. I do okay depending on the program, that I'm using, but it wasn't good enough for it to be professional and for a magazine. And when I first started out, I still have the issues. When I first started my first issue in November of 2012, and it was, great issue, great content, bad design. So I wish that I had told myself, hey, it's okay to wait on it, interview these people, get it lined up, but then save your money and figure out a way to pay for someone who is in that lane, because then you end up putting out bad quality or something that you view as bad quality because you're not proud of it.
So I resonate with that. And as a business owner and entrepreneur, sometimes you have to invest in the things that you're not good at. So that seems like a lesson that you learned very early on, is that you have to hire the pros.
Yes. Shout out to Shannon Clark. She's awesome.
Great job, Shannon. I enjoy every issue. So good job with that. Now, chapter 12, you have a message from the founder, and you said your gain comes after sweat, tears, and a little pain. So the title of the book is If I Only Knew Then. So your founder's message, chapter 12, you talk about your sweat and your tears. What would you tell someone who is just starting out?
I would tell them what I've always said: get ready for hard work, and just go into it not with the mindset of wanting to get that money. Of course you want to get money and you want to provide for your family and all that, but if that is your only goal, then you are in business for the wrong reasons. I was reading an article recently that said something about you're not an entrepreneur if someone can come in and buy your business from you. That means that you're only in it for the money. You're not concerned with with how it can affect change within other people. So I would just say find something that you're passionate about, and if you're passionate about it, it's not going to stop. It's going to be something that's within you. You're going to want to push towards it, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to have school, and you're going to have your job sometimes if you're, starting out while you're working 9 to 5, and you're going to have your baby, and you're going to have your marriage and all these different things playing out. But you can't stop, because there are other people who are watching you, and they're proud of you for even taking the first step. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Not everybody can do it. Of course, we have millions and millions of businesses that start every year, but that doesn't mean that they stick. Just because you start don't mean that you stay. So that's something that I would tell them.
So what books or articles would you recommend that readers pick up besides your awesome book? What other resources do you suggest for entrepreneurs?
Well, of course, your book. I love your book, Navigating the Career Jungle. We're just going to plug that there. But I read books, but I try to read more so for enjoyment. I will read from entrepreneur.com. That's one of the big ones. Forbes.com. I'm not so much of a book, necessarily a book person, because I read a lot. I'm an English major. I did that a lot in college, and I just like to read for enjoyment now. This is one of my favorite pastimes. So I would rather do that instead, and check out short articles. And sometimes with your attention spans, articles are a little bit quicker to get through and get that information. So definitely blackenterprise.com, entrepreneur.com, Forbes.com. I even read, I wouldn't call them competitors, but I even read Essence. And I find some great content in their, money and finance section and different things like that. So there are a lot of places that you can find content.
So you just touched on something, and we have a few minutes left. Talk about what you learned about competitors so far in your business, and what you wish you would have known starting out about competitors.
I wish that I would have known that they're not my competitors. And the reason I say that is because I do not compete with Ebony, and I do not compete with Essence or Sister to Sister or Cosmopolitan or any of them, because they're not like me. One of the things that I did was I research, and I still research, and I still pick up a copy of Essence, and I still buy Ebony, and I still support them all, because I learn from them. I see things in their magazine. It's like, oh, that's cool how they incorporated that. That's awesome. How can that match my brand? How can I do something like that? You have to think about, there are a lot of people within your business structure, within your lane. And that's something I talk about in the book as well. But just because they're in your lane doesn't mean that you're competing with them. You need a tunnel vision on what you're doing. And yes, you can pull from different brands, because that's something that we all do. You do that, but you have to find a way to make it fit your own. So that's one of the things that I learned about competitors, is that they're not my competitors. We have a different message. We have different viewpoints. We have different things that we focus on. And even if we're focusing on the same thing, it's my voice or my writer's voice and not theirs.
Right. That's great. So we have a few minutes left. I want to encourage you, if you have a question, go ahead and pop your question in, or you can send it to us through a tweet. I actually just got an email question, and it says, what's the future for the magazine? Where do you see it going in the next 16 to 24 months? And that question is from Jacob.
Okay, from Jacob. I think, we have a lot of projects that we're working on. One of the big ones that I will talk about is something we did in 2013, and we did an online competition called the We Rock Awards. I posted about it recently, that we're bringing that back for hopefully the 2016 year. It's something that celebrates women that give back to their communities, entrepreneurs from all levels, and that's something that we want to do that's live. We really want to start doing events like that. We have a couple of photography projects that we're working on, a few more books. I have another book that I'm working on, and the magazine is just going to keep on growing and bringing content to the people that they want to read about and to hear about.
Awesome. So great things in store with the book and magazine. Just a small correction. Jacob said, we just want you to know that we're enjoying the show. And our comment was actually our question was from Kim. So we are about to wrap up. Dee, tell everyone how they can subscribe to get the magazine and where they can purchase the book.
Well, the magazine, of course, you can go to womenselevationmagazine.com. Buy now will be right there on the front page. So you can just click that button and see all of our issues there. And then, of course, the book is on Amazon. It's available in Kindle and print. You can also get it on Barnes & Noble, so it's there as well.
And how can they subscribe to get the magazine every month?
They can, if you go to our website, there's the link there there's like an app there on our website that shows all of that, so they can go straight to our website. We also have a great blog where we publish different bloggers every week, so they can check that out as well and see that we don't just do the magazine, we do a blog as well, and they can go ahead and purchase and subscribe from there.
Awesome. So I want to encourage you all. We have so many lessons to learn from Dee, and I highly encourage you to get her book, If I Only Knew Then, Lessons from My Entrepreneurial Journey. This is for all of the entrepreneurs out there. This is a great career strategy session to share with your friends. So I want to invite you to join the Navigating the Career Jungle community on Google+. You can do that by leaving a comment in the section on the Google Plus page or sending me a message. I'll add you to the community. This video will be available for replay, so share it with your friends because there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from Dee. You don't have to learn lessons the hard way because she's teaching you through her book some of the things that you can learn ahead of time. So Dee, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I want everyone to join us in the Navigating the Career Jungle community, where we talk about different lessons learned and we talk about how to propel our careers to the next level. I thank you all for joining me tonight. Have a good one, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.